Dr. Jaishankar, thank you very much for joining us here at Rising Bharat. So we were having this discussion outside and internally in the run-up to Rising Bharat as well. In an election year, forget about election year, we are a few weeks away from elections. What do we ask the foreign minister? Is foreign policy top of mind of people during elections? You would think that more tangible things like homes and toilets, etc., are the things that people are more concerned about during election time. But funnily enough, Minister, in the News 18 opinion poll that we had last week, one of the things that people said, one of the reasons why they will vote for Modi is because Modi ne desh ka naam roshan kiya hai. Modi has elevated the image of India substantially. Why do you think something that is not necessarily tangible, like foreign policy and foreign policy gains, has suddenly become a vote-determining issue?
Well, first of all, let me say what a pleasure it is to be here with all of you. Look, to be honest, that answer doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me because in the last 5 years, traveling around the country, I've seen this sentiment grow. And I attribute it to 2-3 factors. One, that there is a greater sense of pride in the nation about itself, and also as people's basic necessities are being met, they are also looking at many more things, so they know today, for example, that the water connection will come, the electricity will come, the road will come, the health will happen, because they have seen that grow. So they're also, there's a kind of I would say, a new middle class thinking which is pervading through the society. The second is that a lot of people today go out to work, go out on travel. They are tourists of various kinds. Something abroad in some way affects their livelihood. So the connection between being treated well abroad, being looked at well abroad, and their existence is also stronger. I would say the third factor would be, to me, the G20.
G20.
G20 actually ended up our initial concern, and Amitabh is here. Initial concern was how do we get it out of Delhi? But we actually ended up with the entire country owning the G20. That in very small towns, I mean, people you would not think would have an interest in foreign policy, leave alone something as specific as G20. Actually, people had that sense with our G20, it's a time to show our country to the world, people are coming. So I think G20 has had a great sense of connection. And finally, in a very peculiar way, COVID. That what COVID did was, at different times, it's made us aware, after all, the COVID came from outside. We sent vaccines outside. At a critical moment, we got oxygen from outside. So somewhere that connect with the world, it's made people more aware. Then it's technology. You have the world in the palm of your phone. So
I do want to ask you about the G20 part, because we have seen instances in the past where major sporting events have transformed the image of a nation, whether it is the Barcelona Olympics, the Beijing Olympics, and so on. But the G20, the uncharitable way of putting it is it's a talk shop. Why would that have permeated to the level of the Aam Aadmi and our Aam Aurat on the street in a way that it's lifted the image of India?
Partly, as I said, physically, because it was done in 60 cities and towns. And mind you, other than those 60 places where something happened, people went out maybe to another 60 or 100 places more. So if you actually said in terms of locations, I would say maybe 120 to 150 locations in some way or the other saw G20. And we ran G20 actually like an andolan, like a Jan Bhagidari. So I mean, look, I've been doing G20 for 10 years now. This is the only G20 where you went to a place, you had a meeting, but there's a university running a event on a G20. There were a bunch of NGOs who were doing something on a G20. The population was out there displaying their culture. So it had a, a flair and a impact which was very, very different. So the second is, to be very honest, I don't think people expected us to succeed.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, look, we went through, saw the Indonesian presidency, the kind of pressures they were in. Every meeting was blocked by a single issue. And then finally, okay, we patched something together at the summit. All of us helped out because that's the way it is. Now, in our case, I think we took, frankly, much less defensive strategy. We said, look, every meeting, if there's a finance meeting, we will get a finance outcome. If you've got other issues, I'll put an asterisk and put it on the side, but you are not going to block that finance outcome. So what we did was, we piled up the stakes, outcome after outcome. So you said it's a talk shop. Yes, you are right, but even talk shops make a difference. So when a talk shop, for example, ends up recommending to the World Bank that you need to change, reform as per a report which is coming out, or a talk shop says that digital public infrastructure is today a kosher concept and the rest of the world must adopt it for propagation. Don't write off the power of ideas and talking. Ultimately they move things. And I would say, if you look at one thing which has gone very badly wrong with the world, which is that COVID, the impact of COVID has really set back development, SDG targets in the world. The G20 brought the focus back. So, and people intuitively understand it, that people, they may not know the nuances, but they knew the pressures were on us, and they knew that we had to, get the outcome done at the summit, and I think they kind of get it.
So, because this is election season, as they say, you have to go to the voters, give them your hisab of what you have achieved over the last 5 years. So in the realm of foreign policy, because you've been you've been marshalling for India's foreign policy over the last 5 years, aside of the G20, the COVID vaccines, navigating India's interests through these two wars, what is the one thing that you would say is the standout for the Modi government, which no other government in the realm of foreign policy has done in the last 75 years?
Well, look, if, it's not an if, it is a when. When I go out and explain foreign policy of the last 10 years to people, I would actually tell them Modi ki guarantee works as much abroad as it does in the country. Okay. And it is Modi ki guarantee which moved the whole Indian system in Operation Ganga, where 5 ministers were deputed and told you sort out those places and come back when the last people come back, when the military is put to work on a mission like this. It could be that, it could be Operation Kaveri in Sudan, it could be what we did during COVID, the whole Vande Bharat mission, that anybody who was stuck somewhere, I mean, there were shipping crews, there were air crews, there were hotel people, there were tourists, there were students who had been told your hostel is closed, go home. So what has happened today? And it isn't just the people who came back. If you looked at the Gulf, where we have today almost 90 lakh people, my deputy Muralidharan and I were regularly going to Gulf during the COVID because we were carrying messages from PM to the Gulf regime saying, please take care of our people. And they did respond. They did take care of them. So, and it could be, it need not be just taking care in a physical sense. The Modi ki guarantee also applies that I will take the right decision to make sure your petrol costs are kept within reasonable grounds by not going to political pressure. So that sense that, we have a national interest, the national interest will and national welfare in a way, We will do what it takes. We will send troops in the height of COVID to defend our northern borders. We will react to terrorism in a way in which will deter, any sort of repetition of such attacks. So it works in different ways. I think today, part of the reason why people respond to foreign policy is they can see that visibly our international stock, our credibility, our weight, our influence has gone up.
So just like the government puts its record to the people and says these are the things that we've achieved in the last 5 years, 10 years, the opposition also has a right to say that, look, this we think are the failures of the government when it comes to foreign policy. So they say, look at the whole situation vis-a-vis China. You mentioned that. The opposition's even gone to the extent of saying you've lost territory to China. Look at the neighborhood. Even friendly countries are not so friendly anymore. The situation with Pakistan is back in the back burner. With the West, there are serious differences on the Russia-Ukraine war, on the Israel-Hamas war. What would you say to that? What would you say to the opposition's narrative?
Well, I would say, some of the places which, by the way, they said we had lost, were lost in 1962, if not before. So I'd say first go and get a lesson in history, possibly in geography. The second, we may have, differences with the West on Ukraine. But the purpose of foreign policy is not to agree with other powers on the basis of their interest. The purpose of foreign policy is to defend your interest and advance it. So if I have a difference, I have a difference. So what would the opposition like me to do? To get along with people and increase my petrol purchase, price at which I buy fuel? So, let's get the parameter of judgment right. I still say that if you look or take Pakistan, yes, today our relations are very, at a formal level, are very minimal. But why has it happened? It has happened for two reasons. One, because we have put terrorism fair square at the center of the relationship. And number two, the Pakistanis reacted to our in my view, a long awaited, something which should have been done much earlier, decision on 370. So what would the opposition want us to do? Not do 370 because it will upset Pakistan? Or talk to Pakistan ignoring that they do terrorism? Actually, that's what the opposition was doing. So if you ask me, look, foreign policy is not run as a global popularity exercise. It is run if you have an appeasement mentality at home, you will take it outside.